Alright everyone, we start off today, link in the description, not archived of course, because it's a video clip, talking about Jill Biden's comments the other day with regards to, is Joe running? Is Joe prepared to take the plunge? She's insinuating that actually he is nuts enough to do that. This becomes a real big problem for the Democratic Party on multiple levels. The first level is that the vast majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run. They want somebody else. Now, they're split on who that would be. Kamala, oddly enough, does have supporters. Believe it or not, over and over in polls, she's actually in the double digits range, although she's not exactly way out ahead. Buttigieg is in there. You have people from the left that want Sanders. Again, that would be a problem. AOC, someone on the left. Newsom has a little bit of support. You do have people potentially in a field that can compete in the primaries. The problem is that Biden is the incumbent. Some states where he has higher approval would probably suspend their primaries and simply allocate delegates. He has this advantage the same way Trump does. Trump has a lot of lower-level grassroots support in certain states that may clamor to simply allocate the delegates and say, look, he's already been president. He is the technical incumbent. They can bring up honk honk in the 2020 election if they want to, and make a case for suspending primaries. Again, this would rankle some Republicans the same way. I would note that Trump has 10 points more in-party support than Biden does. Repeatedly in polling, Trump has more in-party support. Now, that doesn't extrapolate to a general. It doesn't involve independents as much. It's certainly not voters from the other party. There's hyper-politicization there at this point. But within the party, Trump has a better position than Biden. You then run into a series of other problems. Let's say that in both cases they claim the incumbency and they say, stay out of my fucking way. And they both have to beat off a handful of niche candidates. Right now, Trump has to beat Nikki Haley, Ramaswamy, who nobody's heard of basically, other than briefly, and John Bolton, who's never even mentioned. It's a fairly sparse field. Biden would probably face a sparse field too. Let us say, though, for the sake of argument, that after the primaries, Trump has soared on ahead because more states, because he has that grassroots support and higher in-party approval, ends up facing less ire, despite the incumbency being only technical, only quasi-incumbency, than the actual incumbent Joe Biden from within his own party. Let's say, because the in-party support is less, that Biden, other than the states that suspend, actually does more poorly than Trump does in party. That makes your candidate look weak. Another problem is that you've pissed off a significant proportion of the lay party members. A supermajority of Democrats don't want Biden to run again. For Trump, it's closer to a 50-50 proposition. And a lot of those people like Trump, they just don't think he can be reelected. If Biden shows weakness in the primaries, that mystique begins to dissipate, I think, and I don't even know that the legacy media's wall of silence strategy will help. Also, here's the other problem, the most glaring one. Let me rhetorically ask the Democrats this. You go with Joe. The primary field is sparse. You get a leftoid and maybe a couple of also-rans that just want to sell a book or sell an idea. They want to do what Yang did and inject an idea into the campaign series. They know they can't win, but they've got a single issue. They're going to talk about it over and over and over again and try to astroturf it into the public consciousness. Again, Beto did this. Andrew Yang did this. Marianne Williamson, who oddly enough might attempt a primary run in the Dem Party, she effectively was like this. You've had this happen many times before. It happens in the GOP, it happens among Dems, it happens in third parties. Let's say that Joe, therefore, cruises through, quite clearly is ready for prime time. And let's say that after he's clinched, he dies, or he's incapacitated. The man is now in his 80s. He's considerably older than Trump. He's older than everyone else potentially in the field, other than Bernie, who is clearly not going to run again. He's lost twice. You don't have the incumbency. Nobody likes it. You're losing support on the left to the far, far, far postmodern left. People like AOC. She sometimes cracks 5 points in the polls, which shows the stupidity of some of the Democratic Party's members. Let's say that Joe has a health scare. He falls down Air Force One steps instead of up into the next time, and he cracks his goddamn skull. He has another aneurysm. he comes out with a broken leg and has to describe how he was chasing the dog in the shower again, and people say, I don't know what's going on. The Democrats at the party level can do the bravado thing and say, well, Joe is very vigorous. You should see his bowel movements after he has his bran muffin and prune smoothie. He jumps out of bed and he runs around the room. He's just like a schoolboy. He's just pep and filled with vim and vigor. He's the picture of health. He's much healthier than people half his age. That's fine. It's fine to circle the wagons and do the bravado thing. What we see, though, when we see Joe talk, when we see him dodder around and sometimes lose his focus and not apparently know where he's going, when he forgets that he's at an event for someone who is dead and asks them to stand up in the crowd so he can find them, things like that don't exactly speak to mental vim and vigor. With 2 years to go until that election culminates, don't you think it's possible that in that period of time, again, he's had 5 falls in the last 2 years, he has had numerous moments where he just sort of wanders off or doesn't know quite what's going on. Even if you don't assume any further decline, is there the possibility of significant injury or death when you're that age? Yes, there is. This is also technically a problem for the GOP. Now, Trump is only in his mid-70s as opposed to getting through his 80s. There's a difference, and he doesn't have any footage of him falling down, Trump Force 1 steps or something like that. He also has lost a lot of weight, so he's gotten healthier, actually, than he was before. But even then, there's the possibility, if you go with Trump, that he has a heart attack tomorrow. And he is the front runner and presumptive nominee unless something else comes into the field, because I can't imagine that Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley and John and Bolton, who's never even mentioned, are going to be able to outpower Donald Trump. Biden, though, is worse off. His health is not as high. His age is half a decade older. And he has these cognitive issues that he does provably and observably have. I like how they say, well, just ignore what you're seeing and hearing. His physician, who obviously isn't going to say, yeah, Biden's got some fucking issues because he's not paid to do that, he's not in good health. We can observe it. We're told repeatedly that we shouldn't observe anything these days. We're just conspiracy theorists. There are a boatload of issues with running with Biden. He's crazy if he does get in. And it could destroy his party's capability of retaining the White House, actually. If Biden were to say, you know what, it's time to pass the torch, we need someone who's, not geriatric in here. I've had a good run, and look at all the things we did, but someone else has to do the rest of the work, or something like that, and he passes the torch. That would strengthen the Democratic Party considerably. But if Joe is really as egotistical as I think, and he really is living in the past, and he still conceives of himself as being that burly senator who's really is going to take you out behind the woodshed, there's a chance that he's crazy enough to run. I don't think that he wins re-election. I think if looking at the polls, he starts off at a detriment against both Trump or DeSantis, more or less depending on the state and the region, by the way. DeSantis has higher popularity in non-competitive blue states, I've noticed. Trump holds the heartland in some of those Rust Belt areas and the South. I think it'll be a difficult sell, especially to the Democratic laypeople, though, where Biden's support in party is at about 30% for another run. His approval in party may be higher than that, although lower than Trump's, lower than DeSantis's. But it's a hard sell. Some of those people don't mind Biden per se, but they don't think he can win. Trump has the same issue. Some of those people like him, they think maybe he can win, but they want someone younger and, who's not potentially going to collapse on the live stage having a debate. That would be a disaster for the Democratic Party and ensure their loss. And it's a measurable possibility. I'd put it somewhere in the low double-digit range. We could have a surreal moment where we wake up to the news that the Democratic Party's nominee has died or has been completely incapacitated and is no longer capable of running. At what do you do then? Kamala presumptively hangs on as running mate. Does she finish out the campaign for him? I don't think the Democrats want Kamala Harris to be their nominee. I think they'd rather Biden get reelected and then die on day 2 or something like that so that they can jury rig her into the position without her having to actually win an election, because they know that I think that they don't believe she can win the general. Her in-party support's far lower than Biden's. It's insane if he runs, and the Democrats would be insane not to try to stop him, but there may not be a methodology. by which they can do that to an incumbent candidate. That's about all. Peace out.